Hello, Wood fam. This is Leo with One Happy Widow. And today's topic was actually a request from one of our Facebook group members. And she contacted me, I don't remember how, through a messenger or email or something, said, I'm so exhausted all the time. Like, I'm so tired all the time. Grief has just worn me out. Can you please talk about this? Can you please discuss this? And bring up this topic, of this extreme exhaustion all the time. And so I started thinking about, the situation for myself, because usually I just bring up topics that is affecting me. Like, okay, what's my biggest issue this week? That's what we're going to talk about. And it usually ends up being something that nearly everybody else who watches the video is suffering from too. So, and as I'm breaching more topics and talking about more things, every week I'm like, I'm going to run out of stuff to talk about. What am I going to talk about this week? So if you have ideas of things you would like us to talk about, let me know. And that way, because then I can research stuff and I can find out, what's going on with this. And more than likely, I've probably suffered from it too. And if I haven't, then I can talk about that. So, anyway, I started thinking about, does grief affect me with exhaustion? Well, like, of course it does. But I think the reason why I never thought to talk about it myself is just because there are so many other factors that add to exhaustion that you don't automatically, especially when you're where I am almost 5 years in. And so at this point, being exhausted, I don't automatically think everything has to do with my grief, because it's not the central focal point in my life anymore. It's just kind of like that underlying current of grief that just, affects everything in some kind of way. And so I started thinking about, well, why why am I tired all the time? So and I thought about, well, there's lots of fixing my hair in the camera. There's lots of different reasons for me personally, right? It might not just be grief. It's probably a combination of things, but I'm 48 years old. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably just getting older, right? I don't have the same kind of energy and stamina that I used to have. JP just turned 55 and he can work just like as long as I've known him, he has been a hard worker. He loves to work. He gets up and works outside of the home. He works around the house. He takes care of the animals. He takes care of the yard. He does all the laundry, to be honest. So, um, but I've noticed that over the last year or so, even though he works as hard as he does, he also is more tired. Like, he needs more time to recoup. He needs more naps. He needs longer time to sleep, which is fine. It's fine for him to rest. I'm just saying he needs more rest to recuperate from the same amount of work that he used to do. But for me, one of my biggest reasons I thought, for my exhaustion was that I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I have Hashimoto's disease, which is a thyroid problem, which means your thyroid does not work properly and it's actually underworked. There are two types of thyroid disorders in general. One is that your thyroid doesn't work enough, and the other one is that your thyroid works too much. And so if you have an overactive thyroid, you're like have energy and maybe you can't even gain weight. I don't know. Like, it increases your metabolism a lot. But an underactive thyroid, one of the main symptoms is tiredness. You're tired all the time. You're sleepy all the time. So that usually when I think about being tired, that's usually what I attribute it to, is like my medicine's not working very good. And I used to work out a lot. And believe it or not, you would think working out would make you more tired, but actually it's the opposite. You get tired when you work out, like you fatigued, but it actually gives you more energy during the other times of your life when you're not actually working out. So if you want to raise your energy level, just a note to self, start working out. You don't have to like lift weights or whatever, but like start walking more and just start being more active. It's kind of like that Rolling Stone situation where I also, here's another thing. I have been working down here on the computer, right? So in January, I started working as an online teacher, whereas before I was working in a building. I would do these step bets where, I was supposed to hit 7, 8, 9, 10,000 steps a day. And when I would go to work and walk around all the time, I would come home and I'd already have 5 or 6,000 steps just from the process of being at work. And I just have to get those last few in the afternoons. Well, I can work here all day. And by the end of the day, I don't even have 1,000 steps because I've sat on my ass all day long. And then I come over here and I work on the computer. And so I do a lot of sitting. And so it just makes me like, when you sit for 12 hours, you don't even want to get up. You just want to keep on sitting, or you want to go straight up to your bed and just lay down. So it's kind of like that momentum thing. So that's another issue. Another issue is I have ADHD. I take medication for it. I take it, I guess you could say, as needed. But the longer I take it, the more I take it, the more needed it becomes. So I try not to take it. I have it for twice a day. I can take it once in the morning and once at lunch. I usually don't take it twice a day. I don't take it just because it's time to take my medicine. I take it because it's time that I could take my medicine, but do I need to take it or not? Most of the time I don't take it twice a day. Most of the time I take it once a day. I try to delay it and maybe take it in the mid-morning and then have it last kind of early into the afternoon. Then I don't take it again. I also don't take it on the weekends unless I really, really need it. And today is a weekend. I have not taken my medicine. So the having a stimulant in your body all, 5 days a week, and then on Saturday and Sunday, not having it at all because I'm trying to reset my tolerance level and I'm trying not to take it unless I really need it. It's harder for me to wake up. So I'm like, like even all day today, I have felt like I was kind of tired. So we went to the Jumpy Place, Urban Air, earlier today, and I was able to get up and jump around a little bit with the kids until I thought I was going to pee on myself because I'm old and my bladder doesn't work as well when I'm jumping on a trampoline. But even just like a little bit of jumping that I did and I get home, I'm just like, I'm exhausted. And I also know that I have children, that if you've watched my videos before, you know that my children keep me on my toes. I have 4 of them, and they all take turns handing over the baton of having like emotional life crises. So it's usually one at a time that's having some major crisis. And then we kind of get that one under wraps and like kind of leveled out. And then they seem to just hand the baton over to one of the other siblings, and their life becomes a dumpster's fire for a while. And then I have to help them fix it. So, between all of those things, I'm like, well, of course I'm exhausted. I work full time. I work on this part time, sometimes full time. And I have 4 children who have, who don't have a dad who is alive. And so they have a lot of problems. I've had a lot of like money, not money issues. I don't have money issues. I just have like a lot of bills that have come, like a lot of tax bills have come up and hit us recently. And so we're trying to figure out like how we're going to pay for this one and how we're going to set up a payment for that one. And when are we ever going to get our tax refund from the government? I don't know, because they owe us 2 already and they're about to owe us a 3rd. And so I don't know. Anyway, so all these things going on in my life, really busy, work a lot, have a bunch of kids, and I'm getting old. So I'm like, obviously, even if I wasn't widowed, that's enough to freaking exhaust you, right? And so then I started thinking about, well, how much of this is from grief? Like, or does it just add to it? Does it just make it worse? If I wasn't a widow, would I even feel this tired all the time? Would I be as affected by it? I don't really know. It's like one of those combinations where you can't really say it's one specific thing, but I know for a fact that grief, it plays a part in being tired all the time. And there's one kind of tired where you're like sleepy tired. That's kind of where I am right now. Like I could lay down and take a nap right now. I'm kind of sleepy tired. Oh, and allergies. I've been bragging all this time about I don't suffer from allergies and seasonal allergies and things like that. I think I'm starting to suffer from some seasonal allergies because when my husband complains about his allergies acting up really bad, I notice I'm really tired, like sleepy tired. And my face feels tight. My eyes feel tight. So I'm like, I don't know, makeup like coming off of me. So anyway, that's another thing that's adding, to my exhaustion. So there's that sleepy tired where you really just want to like take a nap. And then there's that mental tired where like, it's not that your body is tired, you just don't have any freaking motivation to do anything because you're like, I don't want to get up at all. I just want to sit here. So that's another kind of exhaustion or tired or fatigue. And then there's the tired, like I just worked out or I just walked 3 miles and my body is like, nope, not doing anything else because your body is done. You just like physically tired. That's probably the best kind of tired because that means I worked really hard and I need to rest and recuperate. But anyway, there's different types of those tirednesses. And a lot of times we have like a combination. I'm going to check and see who's posting in here. Teresa, did you figure out the chat? How to chat? Was it because you were on your phone before? But we've had some issues with people not being able to see the chat, and I think it's because they're watching it on their phone, and you can't see the chat on your phone. I think that might be what it is. So Teresa from Maine and Javelina Flips from Tucson, Annie there from Tucson, Jonice from France. Tressie from Chicago. I don't know if I'm saying this right. Anneke. I'm not sure. From Netherlands. And Janet from Pittsburgh. And hello from, Ingrid. Yay, hello, Ingrid from Netherlands. Sue, enjoy your videos so much. So helpful during a difficult time. Thank you so much. That's why I share my experiences, because I want other people to understand that this is not something that like, this is not isolated to just you, and that there's usually really good reasons behind whatever it is that you're feeling. Then we can work together to kind of figure out some solutions for each person. Lynette from Wisconsin. Lynette is my middle name. Jonice says I'm mentally tired. Yeah, that's a common one. We're going to talk about, and in just a few minutes after I go through these intros, I'm going to start talking about the research that I found about how grief actually affects our exhaustion level. And then Lynette, or chasing after 6 kids and longing for time to let loose and cry. Yes, Lynette, totally been there. I will say this, though. I made the mistake of not ever crying in front of my kids, hardly ever. Very, very few times did I break down and cry in front of my kids because I didn't want to burden them with feeling bad that their mom was sad. But I think that was a mistake. I'm not saying, cry all the time every single day in front of them, but it's okay to let loose sometimes and let them see you cry, because that they're learning how to deal with their own grief. If they don't ever see mom cry, then they start to think that they're not allowed to let anybody else see them cry. And they feel like they have to hide that. And so we don't want to teach them, we want to let them know that it's okay to share their feelings and to cry, even if they feel sad. It's not something I did myself, but I should have done more of that over time. I'm a private person when it comes to that way anyway. Sometimes I cry on these videos because I'm talking and I can't hold it in, but like to let down and do like a full blown breakdown, I don't even like my husband to see me like that. Joni says I always watch on my phone. Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the version of the phone. I still never did figure out how some people are not able to see the chat. It could have been maybe that was a private video. I'm not really sure. Always on my phone, just need to use Jay's site. Okay, so maybe it was the settings then, maybe. I don't know. Peg says hello from Ohio. Hello, Peg. I see some people that are Snowy Owls from Washington State. I see some new faces and new names, but I also see some that are like our regulars. So that I see you posting comments and writing on the chats week after week. So I really appreciate everyone that's here and is joining us today. I haven't had a live in a few weeks, so this is kind of nice to be able to do this. And Tressie says that ugly cry at church, but it's a silent shaking one. Yeah, that happened to me right after the funeral at where they had the funeral. The first time I went to church, like just regular church after that, I had like some PTSD, I think, because in my mind, all I could see was that casket up there at the front of the room. And I never went back. I couldn't go because it was too triggering for me every time I went. And then Dallas said the same thing. My daughter, she's like, I don't like this place anymore, Mommy. It just used to make me happy, but now it just makes me think about Daddy and it makes me sad. So we had to change churches. Diane says I always try to catch you here in Eastern North Carolina. For now, we're sticking with the Saturday 4 p.m. It may change. It probably will change over the summer, so that I can have Saturdays with the family and just spend a weekday maybe doing something. So I might go towards an evening time, like on a Thursday evening or something. Anyway, until further notice, Saturday at 4 p.m. is what we're going to do for now. Greetings from Southern California from D March. Hello, D. All right. So thank you for joining in and popping in and give us your chats. So here's what we're going to talk about first is I just, did a little light research on what is the connection, between grief and exhaustion or just fatigue or tiredness. And this stuff is pretty obvious. I mean, there wasn't really any light bulb things going off in my head except for just to be cognizant of it, like just to realize, that this is when you're feeling so tired, to try to think about, well, it's probably because of such and such. And some things you can change and help and improve, and some things you just have to accept. And once you know, okay, well, it's because of this and this isn't going to change. And so I have to figure out how to deal with it. So some things you can like fix, and then some things you have to learn how to live with it. And so you just have to figure out what those things are. All right. So we talked about like there's physical tired, there's mentally tired, and then there's both. And we just kind of talked about the different types of sleepy tired, mentally tired, physically tired, or a combination of those things, lack of motivation and that kind of thing. And so one of the reasons why we feel this exhaustion as a result of grief is from our sleeping patterns our sleeping patterns get off. One of the reasons why our sleeping patterns get off is because we could be suffering from insomnia. So there's a couple of different types of insomnia. There's the type where you can't fall asleep. And that's a lot of times because our brains are just going over things, especially depending on what stage of grief you're in. You may be in that anger stage. You may be in that trying to figure things out. Like, how did this happen? Why did this happen? Could I have changed these things? What if this had happened instead? You're going through all these things in your mind, or you've got all these things that you have to do. Who do I need to call? Phone calls I need to make, payments I need to make, things I need to arrange, funeral arrangements, probate court, contacting people about my money situations, all these things. But usually you're going and going and going during the day. When you lay down and your body is finally still, your mind starts going, okay, and it starts problem solving. And so you're laying down, your brain will not shut off enough for you to actually go to sleep. So JP does this quite often. He stresses about money a lot more than I do. And I think it's because I've struggled with money for so long in my whole life that it's just something that I'm kind of used to. And so I know that there's certain things that are going to happen and certain things that are not going to happen. Like my house is paid for, so I don't have to worry as long as I keep my property taxes paid, which is still pretty expensive, but like I don't have to worry about missing mortgage payments or rent payments. I don't have to worry about getting evicted or my house being sold. So those are certain things, like my car's not paid for, but if I had to give my car back and buy some crappy whatever, I could do that if I had to. I have a roof over my head. I have food in my belly. A lot of the bills that I have are non-essential, and so my credit might take a hit. But if the worst came to worst, I would still have a place to live and food to eat. And I have chickens that lay eggs for me every day. So, like I don't want to live with the bare minimum, but I could. So I don't freak out about that stuff as much as he does. But the point is that insomnia, like I said, it could be a inability to fall asleep. It could be the inability to stay asleep. So you can fall asleep, but then you wake up a bunch of times in the night and you have to keep trying to go back to sleep. It's very frustrating. And then the other one is that you could fall asleep, but then you wake up really, really early and you can't get back to sleep. So those are 3 different types of insomnia, and you may suffer from one or all or both or of those types. Regardless, insomnia can really wreak havoc on your daytime energy level and your exhaustion. All right. It could be that you sleep too much. So it could be that as part of like when I get kind of low in points of depression, like if I go through bouts of my own depression, I know that's coming because all I want to do is sleep. Even though I'm tired a lot, I can fight through it if my mental state is okay. But if my mental state is in a defeated place, then the way that I escape that is by sleeping. And I have no problems falling asleep. I have no problem staying asleep, and I do not wake up early. I have zero insomnia, none. But I do suffer from sleeping too much sometimes because it's a defense mechanism for me. It's a way for I just escape if I'm not liking the way I feel, sleep. Let's take a nap. That's that however many hours that can go through. I don't have to think about my problems. And so the repercussions later might not be the greatest, but at that moment, that's like, where some people might take like a nerve pill, or an anxiety medicine or whatever. Instead of doing that, I just go to sleep and I just sleep through it and then hopefully feel better later. Sometimes I do, sometimes not. But there is a such thing as sleeping too much. So if you're sleeping too much, you start to get that. It's almost like you never get that sleep hormone out of your system. And so you feel tired, like the more you sleep, the more you want to sleep. It becomes that chronic fatigue syndrome or whatever it is. But like you can actually sleep too much and still be tired all the time. Because that's what people are so dumbfounded by. They're like, how is it that I'm sleeping, 14 hours a day and I'm exhausted all the time? Like all the time that I'm awake, I'm still tired. That's probably mental fatigue, some depression, some grief, some things up here that are affecting your sleep patterns and your energy and your motivation. All right. Also, the change in your daily routine. And so your body loves routine. Your body loves, to have the same time to go to bed, the same time to wake up every day. Those routines, that's what's something called your circadian rhythm. That's the rhythm in that your body, your wake sleep cycle. It kind of goes with the sun, and it kind of knows when you're supposed to be awake when the sun is up and you're supposed to be asleep when the sun is down. And that's science, that's nature. But we kind of mess with that a lot with working long hours or staying up really late or blue lights from our screens and things like that. So anytime that you have a change in your daily routine, that can mess up your circadian rhythm, your biological daily clock, and can mess up your sleep. Well, when our spouse dies, that definitely changes our daily routine. Like more than that, right? But that's on the very basic level. Our daily routine is definitely disturbed, right? It's not the same. We don't have the same person in our life. A lot of changes could happen. We could have to take on more work, more jobs, more stress. Like our daily routine, somebody threw a bomb in it, and there might not even be any daily routine anymore. And so that definitely can mess with your sleep, your energy, your exhaustion level, your fatigue level. So, and I see a lot of people that are posting, and I'm not trying to ignore you, but I want to get through my topics. Then when we get to the end, I will go back and see if people have comments or questions. So if I don't respond to your question or comment right now, I'm saving it till the end. So if it gets lost, then you can post it again. If I go back and forth a lot, I tend to get off track and then I start to ramble. So, all right, let's see. So, extra responsibility. So when you become widowed, that where there used to be a team, it used to be you and your spouse, and you split responsibilities, hopefully, or if it's just me, I'm like all robotic and glitchy. I think my internet might have just had to catch up with you guys. Looks like it's okay now. Anyway, so extra responsibility. So you used to be a team, right? It was you and your person, and you were co-parenting, and you were paying the bills together, or your husband was paying the bills and you were staying at home, or vice versa, or you were going to work and your wife was staying at home with the kids, or you're both working and paying the bills together and sharing the kid responsibilities. However you worked it out. Even if you didn't have kids, it's about bills, it's about housework, it's about making it all work. Well, now suddenly you're one person instead of two. And so whatever those responsibilities were before that you shared with your person, now they're all on you. So maybe you didn't even work before, now you have to work. Or maybe you did work and now you have to work, longer hours. Or maybe you were at home with the kids and now you have to work and take care of the kids and figure out where they're going to go and pay for daycare. Maybe you were working before and you're still working now, but you just lost half your income. And so now you got to figure out, well, I can't make any more money because I already make as much as I can, but I can't pay all these bills with just my salary. So maybe you have to move. Maybe you have to, there's so many different changes. We talk about that in the secondary loss video. We're talking about secondary loss and secondary grief. All of those things are changing your life, and they are adding this extra level of responsibility onto you, which adds to your stress, which adds to your tiredness, which adds to your exhaustion, so you see how the cycle just goes round and round. one affects the other, and so it's like where, you're on that merry-go-round. Where do you jump off, as they talk about on Grey's Anatomy? Um, your brain is on overdrive, especially when it's in fresh grief. Your brain's on overdrive because not only are you trying to think about all the responsibility things that you have to deal with, and the legal things that you have to deal with, and the financial things that you have to deal with, and the family things that you have to deal with, and the dynamics are changing, then your whole life is also changing. But guess what? On top of all that, your brain is having to reconcile and convince yourself that your spouse is actually gone, because it takes a little while before you actually start to truly fully believe it, because you spend some time in denial in the very beginning, especially if it's like sudden. And so your brain is on overdrive. It's trying to process your feelings, it's trying to process your responsibilities, it's trying to process your physical stuff, it's trying to process all of your grief. Like, it is on overdrive. It is being overloaded with input and work. It's working all the time. We talked about a couple weeks ago how the brain can be dysfunction because of grief. We talk about widow's fog and widow's brain and all that stuff, and how your brain is affected by all these different chemicals. That's going on. So if you want to know all the details about that, you can watch the video about brain fog, widow fog. But that's going on, and it's affecting all the rest of you, and it's making you tired as hell, right? And so also you're dealing with stress. Stress is exhausting, right? Stress is tiring. And whenever you read lists of, what's the most number one stressful thing that you could experience, what's number one on the list? Death of a spouse. The number one stressful thing that could happen to you. Death of a child. It's either tied or right up there with it, depending on what list you have. But death of a spouse, death of a child, the two highest stressful things for you to have to deal with in your life. And it's because of all the secondary stuff that goes along with it. Then you have divorce, and you have moving and changing jobs and all those things. But all those things that are like all those other stressful things that are farther down on the list might also happen to you as a result of you losing your spouse. Like, moving is a big stressful thing. You might be moving because your husband died or your wife died, and you have no choice but to sell your house or to downsize or whatever. So now you got the stress of your spouse dying, but you also have this other thing that's like number 4 on the list, which is moving, or maybe changing jobs. Maybe you have to change your job. Changing jobs is also like probably in the top 5. So suddenly, because you have this first stressor, you have all these other stressors that are in the top 10. And so now you have compounded stress. It is tiring. Right? It's just overwhelming, exhausting. So the stress of dealing with so many changes, right? Like I was just talking about it, like change is stress. Even if it's a good change, like becoming widowed, obviously not good, but I'm saying, like, even when things change for the better down the road, a change is still stressful, and a change can still add to your exhaustion, even if it ends up being better in the long run. All right. It's still, you have to work through all the adjustment period. All right. Frequency of grief and triggers and fighting them. So, depending on where you are in your grief journey, like in the beginning, it's your grief is like at the forefront of your whole life, of your daily routine. Like, that's, you wake up in the morning and the first thing you think about is your dead spouse. And then you deal with how that is affecting you for the rest of the day. At some point, things start to shift over weeks, months, years, to where the grief is not at the top anymore, maybe takes a second place, maybe takes third place. It kind of, eventually we're trying to push that grief into the background. It's always going to be there, never going to go away, but we don't want that to be the focal point of our life every single day. So as we're pushing that back, the stress of it doesn't affect us as acutely. But in the beginning, wow, that grief is like right there pushing down so heavy on us, and we're getting triggered by stuff. So when you get triggered, which means like, you hear your song on the radio and it triggers you into some sadness. You pass by a building that reminds you of something that you did together and it triggers you to remember something. It makes you sad. You smell somebody passes by you, walks by you, and they're wearing your husband's cologne and you recognize it and it smells like him. That could be triggering. You have to fight those, or deal with them at least. You have to give it some attention, deal with it. figure out where it's going to go, put it back on the back shelf so that you can get on with the going to work or doing whatever task it is. But that's that trigger of that grief. You have to put your attention on it. Like, you have to exert energy to deal with it. So that's tiring. That's stress. So however many times you're getting triggered during the day by these stressful things that are bringing up grief, when you fight that grief, if you're having to do it multiple times a day, that is exhausting, on top of everything else that you're having to do. Now, this next one that I'm going to talk about might not apply to everyone at the same level, but hypervigilance. So, hypervigilance is not just from grief, but depending on the type of death that your spouse experienced. So, this will be more prevalent in people whose spouses died of unexpected causes or sudden things, or especially if it, like, maybe their spouse died in front of them, like they were there with them and they experienced them, if it was an accident or if it was a suicide or if they witnessed it, and maybe their spouse died of like a heart attack or something, and they were there with them, and maybe they tried to save them and do CPR, and those are the types of events. There are the death itself, the actual death that happened was a very traumatic experience. I'm not belittling the other types. I'm just saying that, there's memories and there's things that, stick into your brain that you have to try to reconcile. And it could cause you to be hypervigilant. Like, I'll give you an example. Dewey was hypervigilant before he died, and his wasn't from grief, but his was from when he came back from Iraq. So he was in the military and he went to war. He came back from Iraq and he had PTSD. That was one of the reasons why he got put out of the military on a medical discharge, because he was on disability. So even before he got sick with cancer, he was already out of the military on disability. Well, hypervigilance, I didn't know what that was until I saw him with it when he came home. So his hypervigilance was, he was always looking for a threat. He was always looking out to make sure that his family was safe. So if we ever went out in public and he walked in, he's scanning the room. He's looking for possible threats. He's looking for people that might be carrying weapons. He's looking for big men that could be aggressive. He's looking for signs. He's taking in people. He's what's called scanning the room. He comes in, he scans the room. He's looking for people that he might need to, like, keep an eye on. And then he could sit down and tell you, once he sat down, he could probably tell you how many people was in the room, how many men, and how many possible aggressors that were in there. Like, he could tell you that like this. Also, when he sat down, he always had to sit with his back to the wall or a corner. He did not want anyone behind him because he didn't want anybody sneaking up on him. He wanted to be able to have nothing behind him so he could see everything in front of him, so that if there was a threat to him, he could see them coming and not get surprised from behind. These are all things that he did not do until he came back from war. And that was called hypervigilance. As a matter of fact, whenever we went places, I could see he didn't have his hands up like this, but they were by his side, but his hands would be in fists a lot, because he was so, like, tense all the time trying to look. And we would go into Walmart sometimes, or some other store, and around the corner he would hear maybe a couple or some people speaking to each other in Arabic, in some Arabic language. He couldn't understand what they were saying, but he understood the dialect and the accent, and he recognized the language. And as soon as he would hear that, because he heard that when he was in Iraq, in wartime. And so when you hear somebody yelling in that language, you're looking over, like, what's going on? Like, is this a good guy or a bad guy? You're assessing the threat level. So when he would hear that, it didn't happen very often, but there was a few times that he would hear it. And he was like, I got to get out of here. I have to get out of here right now, because it would, like, cause his anxiety to go up so high. So that's just an example of, like, what hypervigilance is. And you could experience that if you experienced your spouse dying in a certain way, then you might be looking for signs of that to happen to someone else around you, like, all the time. I can't think of another example that's, like, concrete, but I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. The fact that you're in that state of hypervigilance, like, you're hyper focusing. Your attention is like always looking around and looking for potential dangers and things like that. If your loss was extremely traumatic, and you're having to deal with those thoughts and those images and those things and smells and just everything, could trigger you back to those moments. That state is exhausting. Like you're at this heightened level of attention, and it can wear you out because it's like your brain never rests, like your eyes never rest. It's like your attention is always like, top level. And so that is exhausting. You could be doing some harmful coping mechanisms. Okay. So the way that you deal with your grief, we all have picked up, not all, but most of us tend to pick up maybe a vice, that kind of helps us feel better, but maybe is not the best for us. Mine was retail therapy. When the Amazon packages start to come in multiples to my door every day, I'm probably going through some stress because I tend to shop. Online shopping is my thing, which is not really hurting me. It's not like I'm running us into bankruptcy or anything, but like I'm buying stuff that I don't really need. And so I get that little charge, from buying something. And then by the time it gets to me, I don't even remember what it was. My husband's like, "What's at the door? Was something from Amazon? What'd you order?" I'm like, "I don't know. Open it up and look." "Oh yeah, that this and this and this and this." And so that's my unhealthy coping mechanism. But some people might turn to substances, maybe not abuse necessarily, but it could lead to abuse. But like you might find yourself drinking alcohol more often, or you might find yourself, even if it's legal, like let's say you got some anxiety medication from your doctor that is helping you to deal with things, but it's also any type of medicine that you take is going to have a side effect in some other way that your body's going to have to deal with. And so like my ADHD medicine, for instance, it helps me to cope, but it also raises my blood pressure. And so now I got a blood pressure issue that I got to deal with. So you see how it's like there's always a give and take. And so it might not be that you're adding something to your body or doing something bad. It could just be that you're ignoring healthy decisions. Like maybe you're not eating as many vegetables because you're just one person and it's hard to cook for one person. So you're eating cereal every night for dinner or popcorn or whatever. It could be that obviously you're not getting the right amount of rest. It could be that you're not moving your body like you should. So it could be that you're doing unhealthy things, or it could be that you're not doing the healthy things. Either one of those, if you're not taking care of yourself as much as you should, you're going to suffer by being tired and other things in other ways. All right. And then just the fact that stress is freaking hard work. Like it's hard to be stressed out. And when you're grieving, you're stressed out by the grief and by all the other things that come along with it. Right. So here are this is just a quick list that I got that are some of the physical symptoms that you see, the most common physical symptoms that affect us the most from grief. And a lot of these kind of tie into being tired all the time. So number one is fatigue. Just grieving is tiring. So you're tired because you're grieving. There's a direct relationship there. You might be dealing with aches and pains. Sometimes grief actually makes our body hurt. Like it affects us physically. It might give you headaches. It might give you stomach aches. It might give you backaches, and so it might exacerbate or increase the symptoms of some other thing that you might have going on. And so that's tiring. All right. It could affect you in tightness of your chest or shortness of breath. So it could, like as your anxiety level goes up, sometimes it causes you to have like shortness of breath or panic attacks. It causes your heart to beat really fast. A lot of times people who are having a panic attack, the symptoms of an early panic attack can also mimic the symptoms of having a heart attack. So a lot of times when people have a panic attack, they think they're having a heart attack because it's, they feel their heart beating and they can't breathe very well. They might have pain in their chest and things like that. So obviously that's tiring, right? You could be getting headaches. Like I said, a lot of times grief and if you do a lot of crying, if you're in that fresh stage and you're doing a lot of crying, it's going to have everything up here is going to be tight and snotty and puffed up and inflamed. And this causes your head, and that makes you tired. Crying, the act of crying is tiring. Have you ever had like a really good cry, like a really good ugly cry for like a good 20 minutes? When you get done, you're just like, You just need to like sleep, right? Like I've had panic attacks before. I have not had one in a long time, but I used to suffer from them pretty often. They started when I was pregnant with my son, but whenever I would have a panic attack that was so bad that would end in me hyperventilating and like passing out, which happened a few times. When I noticed as soon as I came to and recovered, I was so tired. I was like, I gotta lay down. I would have to lay down for 2 to 3 hours just to recover from that panic attack that I had. So that's exhausting. Your forgetfulness. And we talked about that in a whole video about widow's brain, about how the brain, affects our memory and how grief affects the chemicals in our brain, all that stuff. But that can be tiring too, because you're like, I can't remember anything. And then you're stressed about that. And then that makes you tired. And then it's, you see how it's all like a vicious cycle. The inability to focus. Again, that's kind of along the widow's brain thing, but like your brain is so occupied with the grief that you cannot focus on other things that may be important for you. And so that's tiring to try to laser focus your attention on what it needs to be focused on. It's really hard to do when you're when you're distracted by your grief. Your appetites might change. You have appetite changes or digestive issues. So you might start getting stomach aches. You might get an ulcer. So a lot of times people who are grieving, there's two different two main ways that people's appetite gets affected. So one way is like when my mom gets really stressed, she just does not eat. She's like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten in 3 days. I just totally forgot. Like, how do you forget to eat? How does that work? So, and I've noticed that when I am really depressed, I don't eat. I just like I don't want to eat. I don't care to eat or whatever. I just rather sleep. But when I'm really anxious and I'm like having a lot of stress, I stress eat for comfort. And so I overeat when I'm stressed out. I undereat when I'm sad and depressed because I just have no interest in food. And so both of those things are not good for you. Okay. If you're eating too much, you're feeling sluggish, you have digestive issues, it gives you a lot of stomach aches and like all that feeling bad. You have no energy. If you're not eating enough, you don't have any energy because you haven't fed your body. And so you're hungry and you're tired and you don't have enough calories. And either way, it's bad. All right. Also, when you are in grief, your immune system tends to go in the shitter. And so you you get sick a lot more often, if you'll notice. And because your immune system's not fighting off because you're too busy trying to deal with this grief. And so you tend to get sick more easily, more often, and it takes you longer to recover. And being sick is tiring. And so sometimes you feel like, gosh, I can't kick this. Like as soon as I get to feeling better, then I get the flu. And as soon as I get rid of the flu, then I got COVID. And then as soon as I got over that, then I got, all these allergies are messing with me or whatever. And so it's just, it seems like a never ending thing. In the last 2 years, I got COVID before the vaccine was even available. I got it really bad. I was not hospitalized, but I was about this close from being hospitalized. I had pneumonia in both chests and I was out of work for 3 weeks and it was tough. And then I got the vaccine and then I got COVID again. So and it wasn't nearly as bad, but everybody in the house had it. And so I caught a really mild form of it, but it was the biggest symptom. Guess what? Fatigue, exhaustion. I was tired. All I wanted to do is lay down and not do anything for days after days after days. So, okay. So that's pretty much like, nothing that's going to like explode your brain, right? I'm sure you did not hear anything that was surprising to you, just enough to be like, yep, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yep, that's me. That's happened to me. You can sort of relate. There's a couple things that I want to just quickly go over, just some general ideas of how you could help yourself in those situations. But I have a whole section in my pivot course that we talk about these. We break these things down and we talk about exactly how you can put them in your life, exactly how you can help yourself get back on routines, how you can work on your sleep schedule, how you can work on your movement schedule, how you can work on your exercising, your eating right, you're doing routines, you're making yourself planning out your day, all those things. all these things that will help combat this exhaustion, because you're working on making your daily life back on a routine so that your brain can work on autopilot for the activities that you do every day, and then it can focus more of its attention on dealing with this grief or whatever the stress is that's coming into your life. So like I said, I'm going to cover them real briefly here, but for a more in-depth training of that and to really get deep into those resources, if you really feel like that would help you, then I would suggest to sign up for the Pivot course. I have 2 versions, right? I have one that has just the first module, the first 7 lessons, so you can take a look at it and be like, I'll give it a try, and see if this will help me. And then there's another one that is the full course. It's all 4 modules, 28 lessons. It will take you, like, if you really do it right, it'll probably take you a few months to get through it, but it's all these exercises and all these, lessons on how to change the way that your brain thinks, how to change the way that your brain talks to yourself so that you can start to develop healthier habits in your daily life. So the links to the Pivot course and the Pivot mini course is down below in the comment section, not in the chat, but in the actual comments below the video. There's also a link to the free journal pages and the widow's chart, like who to contact when your spouse dies chart. So all those are linked below. So if you're interested in any of that, then you can just click on that. But let's talk about just some general ways that you can combat some of this exhaustion. So the first thing is to prioritize self-care. And you know what that means? That means eat right. Don't skip meals. Don't eat too much junk food. Don't replace a meal with junk food. Stay away from too much sugar. Here, I'm saying this, I have like a thing of candy right over here, but this is part of my, I have a weight loss program. I'm working on that program too. I'm going to share it with you later, but that's part of my program because I get some days where I can eat what I want to eat and still lose weight. So I'm still working through that, but prioritize your self-care. So try to get to bed at the same time every night. Try to wake up at the same time every morning. Try to, use a daily agenda and plan out your day so that you know what's coming and nothing takes you by surprise. Move your body, whether it be exercise, walking. Just go for a walk if that's all you can get done, then just do that. Like I said, eating healthy foods. Just take a few minutes every day to pray or meditate or do some deep breathing or give yourself some quiet time, or take your bubble bath and drink a glass of wine if you want to, if that helps you kind of relax. And try to find supplements if you need supplements to help with your mental state. There's some things that even without a doctor's prescription that you can take that might help you feel better. You just have to try those things out and see what might work for you. Talk about all those specifics in the Pivot course. Number 2, downgrade your expectations. So don't try to be Wonder Woman or Superman. Don't try to do everything. You're not going to be able to do everything that you did before your spouse died. You're just not at first. You're not going to be able to. So don't expect yourself to, and don't even try, because then you're going to set yourself up for some failure, and then you're going to feel bad about yourself, and you're going to, start this really bad cycle. And so just, downgrade your expectations, which means, look, just say, if I can get up, get in the shower, get dressed, and go to work and come home, then I'm going to call that a win for the day. And anything extra that I do on top of that, that's just extra. But if I can't do one other thing besides that, that's what I'm going to do today. Take one day at a time. Be patient with yourself and others. So be patient with yourself. A lot of people, they will post on Facebook and they're like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 weeks. When is this feeling ever going to end? Am I ever going to feel any better? Like, yeah, you're going to feel better. You are, like, there is light at the end of that tunnel, but it ain't going to be in 3 weeks. It's not going to be in 4 weeks. Like, you've got to sit back and let the process, you've got to go through it. You cannot skip it or go around it. In order to get through grief, you have to get through the grief, but it's a long process. It is a marathon, not a sprint. And the healing and the growth happens in like little tiny, minute, little baby steps, but you still got to make them. And then over time, you look back and you write in those journals, get that free journal page and free journal pages that you can, type up, print out and write in a journal. It'll help you now. Like a lot of people, the journal helps them right now. But for me, the journal helps me when I read it later. look at it and I write down what I was feeling. And then months later, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at where I was back then. I'm a lot better off now than I was back then. But you don't remember that. And so you have to write it down. It's like pictures when you lose weight. You don't see yourself lose weight in the mirror. Take a picture of yourself. And then 6 months later, go back and look at those pictures and be like, whoa, wow, I look a lot different. But you don't see the changes from day to day to day. They're so slow. So you got to have patience with yourself, have patience with others. A lot of people, they mean well, they do not know how to deal with you. You might be the only widowed person that they know, and they have no idea how to talk to you about it. A lot of times, if they don't know how to talk to you about it, they won't talk about it at all. And so, or they don't want to bring it up and they feel so weird that they avoid you. So just know that most people are not trying to be malicious and hurtful, although sometimes the stuff that comes out of their mouth is horrible. But I think it's just because they don't know what to say. They feel like they have to say something. And so something comes out and it's just stupid. So just try to understand and remember that if they're coming from a place of love and caring, to give them a little bit of grace, because they most of the time just don't know. All right. Take things one day at a time. And this is, my mom speaking. Every step is one step closer. That's her little saying. That's like our big family saying, is every step is one step closer. And then our response as kids was, closer to what, Mom? Closer to what? Like you're going through grief. Every step is one step closer. Closer to what? Closer to like close to the end of your life? I don't know. But we'll just say it's closer to feeling better. Every step is one step. Let's say this. Every step is one step farther away from that moment of grief that was the worst moment of your life. So let's say we're walking away from it instead of walking towards something, right? All right. And then number 5 is, which is very ironic because it's talking about, today we're talking about exhaustion, but it's get plenty of rest. Unless you're one of those people who's getting too much rest and that's why you're too tired. So if you're already sleeping 20 hours a day, this one's not for you. But if you're not sleeping, then it's okay to take a nap. Like it's okay to put your feet up and rest sometimes if you're not getting enough. And sometimes it's not sleep that you need. It's just quiet, like to quiet your brain. And so try to find something to take your mind off of the imminent grief that's right in front of you, whether it be read a book, come to one of these videos, go to our Facebook group. Hey, our Facebook group, if you're not already a member, go join the Facebook group because it is awesome. It is so full of caring, awesome, wonderful people. I promise you will feel better if you go. I'm going to put that actually in the chat. Facebook.com/groups/OneHappyWidow. See if I typed all that right. Okay, so there's our link to the group. Facebook.com/group/OneHappyWidow. Go there, make sure you answer all the questions, including the email address, because usually scammers will not give a valid email address. And so that's a good way for me to kind of keep the creepers out of our group and try to protect everybody as best as I can. But anyway, so yeah, go there, find something to keep your mind off of things and not be cotton candy or whatever, right? Like find a TV show that you like to watch, and you watch maybe one episode every day. We're in the middle of watching Ozarks right now, and the last of the season just came out yesterday, but we're trying to catch back up, and so we can't watch the end until we catch up to the other. So we're like watching 1 or 2 episodes a day. Read a book. Go to find a book on grief if you think it would help you. If you go to kit.co/OneHappyWidow, I'm going to put that in the chat too. It's not kit.com, it's kit.co/OneHappyWidow. I have a whole list of grief books that you could click on and order that are the popular grief books. They're almost all of them are going through Amazon. They're affiliate links. So if you go there, it'll kick me back a few pennies here and there. But if you're just like browsing around and you want to see if you can find a book on grief, a lot of times if you find a book by somebody who you can really relate to, then it will help you. Kind of like these videos, like, yep, I feel that way. Yep, that's exactly how I'm feeling right now. Most of the time, we just want to hear somebody say that they feel the same way that we do, or they react to their feelings the same way that we do. or they're doing things as a result of their feelings like we are, because we just don't want to. We want to know we're not the only person who's feeling this way or who's acting this way because of how we feel. And so usually when we hear somebody else going through it the same kind of way, it makes us feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is normal. It still sucks, but at least I'm not the only person, that keeps his deodorant in my bathroom that I sniff every once in a while just to kind of bring back like an old memory, right? I know I'm not the only person who does that. And so it makes me feel a little better knowing that I'm not the only person who does that. And so a lot of times we just need that reassurance that we're not alone and that other people care about us. And we can take advice from other people who've been through it better than we can take advice from somebody who has no idea what we're going through. They might give us great advice, but we don't want to listen to it if they've never lost a spouse or somebody really close to them. Because like, how do you know how do you know what I'm going through? You have no idea. You're just guessing. You might have guessed right, but I don't want to listen to that kind of thing. But if somebody else that I know has been through it and gives me some advice and says, well, I went through that and I tried this and this helped and I tried this and that helped. And I'm like, okay, if that helped them, there's a good chance that it might help me too. So I'm going to try that. I'm more likely to listen to those people. All right. So now I'm going to go over to we have got a ton of chats up here. Somebody says, for the ladies who are more than 5 years out now, has your ability to kind of resume old function again, like multitasking, hobbies, retaining information, or focus? That's interesting. Like I was able to get to that point for before 5 years was out, because I think I just knew that grief was always just going to be that shadow that kind of casts over me, and I got to that acceptance point pretty quick and just said, you know what, I'm just gonna have to live with grief for the rest of my life, and I don't want it to debilitate me, so I'm just gonna keep doing my life. And so I got back to it, but I know that might not be the norm for everybody. um Mary Morin says, I had breast cancer while my dear husband had his cancer. Oh, that is a double doozy. Wow. I've discovered inner strength through my belief in angels and the love of my brothers. I've not seen them since August 2019 due to COVID. Oh, that's really tough. COVID has just like thrown a wrench in everybody's lives. It's just been so ridiculous. Thank you, Leo, for this list of tiring symptoms due to grief. I sometimes have the feelings that I am not normal. Your positive energy and explanation of secondary grief helps a lot, Ingrid. Yes, hopefully, and you're welcome. But hopefully, like I said, these lists sometimes can just bring it home and be like, okay, this is totally normal. So if you know it's normal, you can deal with it a little better instead of thinking, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling this way? So, all right, let's see. Thank you. You inspire me. That's so nice. I was asked if I was fixed yet. Aren't you over it yet? Come on. It's been 2 years. You should be over it by now, right? This is things that people say to us, ridiculous things. And I'm working on that. Like I'm working on a video about, all the things that you shouldn't say to a widowed person. I'm going to try to do it like as a funny skit, but sometimes when I do funny skits, they don't go over too well for some of our people who watch. So I have to spread those out. But, sometimes you can laugh about things, not all the time, but you don't have to cry about it all the time. So we do try to make light of things sometimes. It makes us feel a little bit better. All right. Fixed, right? Golly. Chocolate helps. I send you all my love, my compassion, my blessings. So thank you so much. And it does. Chocolate does help. I mean, when we're eating it. And then later we got to deal with whatever. As long as it's a little chocolate, then yeah. That dark chocolate is supposed to be the best. I didn't handle that one very well. Yeah, I can imagine. Are you fixed yet? I want to smack somebody who said that to me. Jonice said the Facebook group is outstanding. I wholeheartedly concur. And the more people that have come in, the more feedback we've gotten from it. It's about 1,000 members now, and it's like it's a really nice place to be. So I would say, if you're not there, get there, join it. I just added my request to join the Facebook group. So just know that I don't let people in every single day. So you might have to wait 3 or 4 days because I kind of cycle through until I get 6 or 7 members, and then I just let them all in at one time. So if it takes a couple days, just hang in there. I've listened to your videos several times when I'm feeling too down. Sometimes during the night, I'll turn on one of them and listen until I fall asleep. It's just nice to know that I'm not alone. So And yeah, I suggested that one time before. Like, if you need something to like help you fall asleep, just watch one of my videos, and then maybe wah 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 will kind of help you fade off into la la land. I have his laundry detergent. Yeah, like smells are the biggest memory triggers. Good and bad, I guess. Lynette joined the Facebook group. Truly like a family that cares. I have to concur with that. I don't get in there to respond to every single comment because it's so busy all the time, but usually the group takes over and has really good advice too, so we all help each other. I'm also struggling with the thought of going through his things. Is there a point of time when that's best? So Lynette, yeah, we've talked about that in a few of our videos, and everybody's got their own timeline, and it's with that one it's a lot different with a lot of people. There's not like a, well, typically, because like for me, as soon as I got home from the hospice and from the funeral and everything, and I looked in my closet and I saw all of his stuff, and I knew he was never going to be dressed from that closet again. I couldn't take it. Like, I couldn't sit there and look at it every single day. It was a real bad trigger for me. And so within the first week of me coming back after the funeral, I went ahead and got rid of his stuff. And so normal stuff, like I just gave away to Goodwill, and then underwear stuff I threw in the garbage. And then I kept a couple of his like high school shirt, his referee shirt, his army outfit, his drill sergeant hat, his boots, things that represented like who he was, that I feel like the kids might want to have a piece of later on. I saved those and put them in a trunk. And then the rest of it, I just got rid of it. And then his mom got really mad because she came in. She's like, "I want all his stuff, and even his underwears and his socks. I'll take it." And I said, "Well, I got rid of all that stuff." She's like, "I can't believe you got rid of all that." Well, sorry. But then there's other people who are like a year out, and they're like, his robe is still sitting on the thing, and his outfit that he was going to wear the next day is still sitting on the chair, and like they haven't moved anything, and they just can't bring themselves to do it. But Lynette, I will tell you, the one thing that I've noticed that's kind of the same is that when they get to that point, they get to it. Like they're like, "I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it." And then one day something will flip in there. That was not a good symbol, but something will flip in their mind, and they will like, they'll be like, "You know what? I have to get rid of him right now. Like, I have to do it right now." Something will happen to where you'll just switch, and you'll just feel like it's time, and you'll just know. But the amount of time that goes by when that happens, it varies so much across the board from what I've heard from other people. So don't freak out. If you're still not ready, don't do it. Don't do it because somebody else thinks you should be ready. Wait until you are, and you will be one day. You just get to that point where you will. All right. Julia says, "How do you deal with the loneliness? I find the hardest so far when many of my friends and family members are busy with their own lives." I think the loneliness hits you. It's a little bit of a delayed reaction because in the beginning, everybody's there. Everybody's bringing you stuff and checking in on you. And a lot of times it's weird because that's the time we probably can't handle being around a lot of people, because I'm like, I wish people would stop knocking on my door. I'm sad. I don't feel like getting up. I look like crap. I haven't taken a shower. I don't want to like entertain people. I don't know what to say. I don't want an interview. Like, I don't want to talk about this stuff. And then when you finally start going back to work and trying to live your life like a normal day to day, that's when everybody's gone and they've gone back and started living their life again. And you're like, that's when you really feel like you need to start asking for help, and you wish somebody would come to the door and bring you dinner like they did in the very beginning. But then you feel like that window of opportunity to ask for help is kind of like too far gone, because you feel like people will say, "Well, it's been 6 months. Why is she asking now, telling us that she needs help with the kids and help with the dinners and whatever? Like, she should be getting on her feet by now." But it's kind of backwards. So, how do I deal with the loneliness? I had 4 kids at home, and so I was lonely for companionship, as far as husband and wife goes, but like I didn't have a whole lot of time to dwell on the loneliness because I worked full time and I had 4 children. Sometimes I couldn't get enough alone time because there was always somebody there. So maybe somebody else can talk about that one. Maybe somebody who didn't have kids at home still, and now they went from having somebody there in the house to just being by themselves. I know a lot of people end up getting pets, or they have pets, and they kind of turn to their pets for some companionship too. So that's another idea. And then just go out and be around people. go find some social events that you could do. I know COVID in some areas is still locking us down, but in our area, it's pretty much back to, hold on. Excuse me. I felt that one coming. In our area, it's pretty much back to normal. Like, people who are only people who are wearing masks are the people who voluntarily want to. Most things are not restricted anymore. Everything's kind of opened up. And so go out and find a social group, something that has find a hobby and then find a group of people who like to do that. Even if it's just a group of people to walk with or something like that. I video chat a lot to feel connected. Okay. So that's an idea. Let's see. I love salads and veggies. You're lucky if you love salads and veggies because I eat them. I don't love them. I just eat them because I know they're good for me. I'm like a kid. I'm like, I have to eat my vegetables first, get it out of the way, so then I can eat my good stuff on the plate later. So Tressie says, yes, Julie, I would like to know an answer to that question. So I think the loneliness question is a big question. Something that maybe it'd be a topic of another video on down the road. So I have to get some research on that too and see how other people are dealing with that one. Diane says, I actually told my physician that your video has helped me in some areas of my grief. Oh, wow. Nice. Well, that like really warms my heart. And it lets me know that the work that I'm doing here is helping somebody, because that's the way. This is kind of like my therapy, right? Me talking about this and knowing that me sharing my experiences is helping other people to feel somewhat better. That lets me know that it's a good, like, it's helping, not just helping me, but it's helping other people. And so it's a good feeling to know that. So I appreciate that, that feedback from you. And thank you for the Bible reading. Yes, you're welcome. I know I have another channel where I'm reading. I've always wanted to read the Bible and I've never stuck to it. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to do a video, YouTube channel with Bible readings every day for a year. I'm going to do 365 daily Bible readings. I'm going to go through it in chronological order and I'm going to read it until it's done. And I knew that if I would do it on a YouTube video that I would make myself do it, because now I have it scheduled. Like, I have to do it and keep up. And then so far I'm on like day 120. And so I started on January 1st. And so by the end of December, I will have it done and it will be out there. And and then I could say I've read the whole Bible from start to finish. And so I'm doing that. I have like 24 subscribers. So it's not like taking the world by storm, but it's more to help me hold me accountable. And then the first 30 days, I realized somebody had given me some feedback and said, look, you're reading way too fast. Like, I was speed reading. That's what I do. And so I had to really slow down and make it like, so the first month of readings is probably like, it's hard to hear me because I'm talking so fast. You might have to turn it down like on 3/4 speed. And then after the first 30 videos or so, I purposely slow myself down. The only other part about that is there's so many names I cannot pronounce right. I don't know if I'm saying them right or not, but you know what? Probably nobody else does either. So Angela says, I went through all of his things within the first 2 weeks. So yeah, Angela, that was me too. I just, I had to do it right away. Joni says, I just did his closets in March. It'll be a year in June when he died. For some reason, Jonice, that one did not allow to show. So I put that one through. I find it very helpful to write regularly with stories, photos to Jerry's siblings who live overseas. Our shared grief has bonded us closely. That is what a wonderful idea. So you're writing not just to yourself, but like to his family members. So that's a great idea too. I like that. Julia says, I didn't have anyone to visit. Unfortunately, I did hang out a few times though. Yeah, like I said, it just makes it harder with COVID and all that stuff. It's really tough sometimes. Angela says, bless you. Teresa says, bless you. Marcia says, find a church. So yeah, for those of you who are, open to visiting church, a lot of caring people that can be there. And if you find a good church that has a lot of different programs and stuff, then you can find like-minded people who have little different meetings and groups and Bible studies and all those things. And a lot of helpful people can be there. Joni says, luckily my son, his wife and grandkids live right across my yard. So that helps. Oh, so close enough to visit, but maybe not close enough to be there all the time. That's a nice little that's a nice little distance there. Marcia said it is very lonely, and yes, it is. It definitely is, especially in the beginning. About loneliness, I don't have kids or family nearby. I go out for a daily walk, join local retirement group. I go to coffee mornings. I plan to join a writers group. Just get out of the house. Good, yeah. Start going somewhere. Get out of the house and start meeting up. Go to like check out your local newspaper or something, or your local Facebook page for your city. And a lot of times people will put events on there and just start going to events and maybe meeting people that way. Um, Absolutely, you've helped so much. Oh, Jonice, that's very nice. And yes, I have no children. So having children is like a double edged sword. You're not lonely, but you're sure busy. So, it's sometimes it's like it's what gets you up in the morning is knowing you got to take care of the kids. And so that kind of helps keep you going. But they are very stressful. So, cheap filler instead of carbohydrates. Yes, yes. The vegetables, I agree. Carbohydrates are just empty calories, pretty much. How can we find your Bible reading? Yeah. Let me see if I can find the. Uh, Let me see if I can find the link. Let's see. Of course, my thing is going super slow. My channel here. Let's see. Trying to get the link. I put it there in the chat. All right. It's like it doesn't have like a cool name yet because there's not enough subscribers. But I put the link down there in the chat for the Bible reading YouTube channel. Great ideas. Suicide loss has been the hardest for me. My first husband was murdered after 3 years of marriage. Oh my gosh. My second died suddenly after 25 years. My third, after 8 years, took his own life December 2019. I can't seem to process. Oh, Barbara. Wow. 3 times. And apparently that last one was very traumatic. I'm sure they were all traumatic, but that's tough. And I think that, I have no idea, but I can only imagine that just because you've been through it before does not make it any easier the next time around, and might make it harder because it's now compounded grief. And so that's one thing that I try not to think about too much and worry about too much, is that JP and I are both widowed. If we stay married long enough, one of us is going to be widowed again, depending on who goes first. So if he dies, I'll have been widowed twice. And if I die before him, he will have been widowed twice. So it's something that is going to happen at some point. I just don't want to think about it. So I don't want to think about that. I have started getting degrees from University of YouTube. I say that. I was like, if YouTube could give degrees, I would have like 3 doctorates by now because YouTube will teach you anything. I have picked up hobbies that I've never had interest in before, or hobbies I've never even heard of before. Doing my own nails like the professionals. I have a mini salon set up now. I just joined this Facebook group called ADHD for crafters or something like that. And oh my gosh, the crafting hobbies that people come up with, because ADHD people are serial crafters, right? So we just go from craft to, like, we go from hobby to hobby to hobby, and then we sometimes cycle back around, but we can't just have one. Like, we lose interest in one and we have to pick up another one, and then we pick up another one. And so it's tough. But I have seen some hobbies and some crafts that I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And I'm like, nope. I can't get started on another hobby. I've got to let it. Nope. Marcia says, I joined a new church. Yes, and when we moved, we had joined the church. We joined the church right across the street from us, and it is fantastic. They have so many resources and a bunch of nice people over there. Sewing, gardening, power tools, wall repairs, investing strategies. See, like Angela, you must have that ADHD thing too going on with all your crafts and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if you do or not, but that's a typical sign of somebody who has ADHD. So let's see exactly. All right. So Barbara Mortimer, I have a horrible pit in my stomach now. I'm not sure what that is from, but one strangely positive thing about being widowed is that I'm now finding my new purpose in life. I'm writing my memoir. Um, yeah, sometimes we start focusing on things in a way, we start looking inside ourselves and really, instead of seeing ourselves as a piece of a whole with our other person, we now have to see ourselves as just ourselves. And a lot of times we have to focus on ourselves and things about ourselves that we did not focus on before because we're focusing on our person. And so sometimes people struggle and aren't able to do that as easily. And that's when complicated grief kind of comes in. But when you can accept that and then you just really start working on looking inside, and like working on you, then a lot of times that's when we move our best. We make our most movements forward out of the active grieving process, is when we just really focus inside of ourselves and say, okay, let's become the best versions of ourselves that we can be so that we can give to others and help others in some way, whether it be just help others monetarily, help others with our time, maybe help other people who are grieving, to help them go through what you've already been through, whatever those things might be. So, Angela, I absolutely feel like I have ADHD. Who knows? You might have. When I was a kid, girls didn't get diagnosed with it because it was like a boy thing. The boys who jump around on the desks, you give them Ritalin at lunch every day, right? And then that's what you do. And since I wasn't the kid jumping around on the desk, I have it up here, in my brain. Like my brain is going all the time and I need it to focus. And instead of focusing like this, it's like this. When I take my medicine, it's like this. I can think about one thing, I can focus on one thing, and I can actually get something done. And so I didn't get diagnosed until I was 47. And then I went on medication and I was depressed for like 2 weeks because I realized that I could function on a regular, like regular people do. And I had learned how to function all those years before that, to a failing level, but it was so hard for me to function like regular people do. And I thought that was just normal. Like I thought people just always struggled to function daily like I did. And then I realized, oh, all this time I've been working so hard to try to make my life work. It should not have been that hard. I could have just taken some medicine and it would have helped me to live like a normal person. I was really sad about 47 years of wasted potential. Like, what could I have done with my life if I had been medicated from the time I was like 10, right? What a waste. But then I had to get past that and now I just look forward. And medicine is not like a cure all be all, whatever. Like I still totally have it, but I can function when I'm on my medicine. So anyway, I need meds, like, right? You would be surprised. A lot of women are getting diagnosed at later stage in life. And I was one of those people who always were like, I probably got it. Yeah, I probably got ADHD. I probably got it. And I joke about it. But I felt like, well, I've lived this long and I've figured out how to cope, right? So, and it wasn't until I became widowed that I couldn't cope anymore. Like I was able to hold it all together. It wasn't easy, but I figured out how to because I was used to it. But that added level of grief made it to where I couldn't function anymore. Like it blew up my executive functioning skills so badly that I couldn't function anymore. I wasn't being a good parent. I wasn't being a good teacher. I wasn't being a good housekeeper. I wasn't being a good anything. And I couldn't hold it together. And so that's when I finally had to get some help. And now I take medicine and it's helps a lot. So I'll just say that. All right. So I think that's going to do it for our exhausted topic today. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but if you've got ideas or if there's something that you're wondering about or something that you would like for me to shed light on, something that you want me to cover or talk about, just contact me. You can email me, onehappywidow@gmail.com. You can go on the Facebook and message me that way or put it on the Facebook post. Any way you want to get in touch with me. If you have ideas. Again, I'm still working on my little skit for what not to say to widows. And just as a warning, I'm going to do it as like a comedy skit. So the last time we did a comedy skit about not grieving right and people being the grief police and telling us how to do it the right way, we lost a lot of subscribers. A lot of people did not like it. They did not appreciate that type of humor. So I don't know what to say about that, but sometimes we joke about stuff. And so that's what's going to happen. Anyway, um, so yeah, that's going to do it. Thank you so much. I discovered you 3 years ago when I was newly widowed, but then I forgot. Shocking, right? Widow's brain strikes again. But I'm still here. And I appreciate all of you coming and spending some time with me and, us being able to talk about things because I hope it does help people to know that you're not alone and there are other people out there who do care about you and want to help you. And if you're feeling like this resource is not enough, then check out the pivot course. If you feel that that resource is not enough, then don't hesitate to go get some help. Talk to a doctor, talk to a therapist, talk to a psychologist. It might not always be about medication, but that is an option for some people. And so, start with the free stuff that you can find on YouTube or here, or Facebook. And then if that's not working, go a step farther. And if that doesn't work, then go a step farther. There's always, more help out there, more levels of help out there. Sometimes they're a little more expensive, but yeah, there's something out there that can help you. You just have to figure out what it is and find it, and then put your effort into healing rather than grieving. And that's what we got to do, right? Oh, thank you. We all love and appreciate you, Leo. That's so nice. Yeah, that just means a lot to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate all of you, and I'll either be live next week at 4 o'clock, or I will have a video that will post it next week at 4 o'clock on Saturday. So one way or the other, my plan is to do as many lives as possible, but yeah, we'll see. All right. Until then, until next week, we'll see you at the Facebook group. Check out all the links in the description below for, all the kinds of resources, and contact me if you need anything or have questions. All right. You guys have a good weekend and the rest of the week, and we'll see you later. Bye.